I'm gonna hit go live and have a coughing fit right immediately, apparently. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, as always, Katie. Thanks, Joe, for filling in for me last week. And with me is Clay. Clay, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. I was on daddy duty today. Totally forgot that my wife worked today. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna watch Percy Jackson. I'm gonna prepare for the podcast and everything's gonna be okay. And then my wife was like, hey, by the way, I work. And I was like, oh crap. I have to change my whole
so,
schedule up. But
so
everything worked
if
out.
you,
We pushed the episode, of course, later tonight, but we're good.
yes, so if you have to run away, we completely understand. No worries. Um, I'm sorry if I sound kind of gross still. I am getting over the flu and pneumonia. I don't know if Clay told y'all that last week. But yes, that is what I had for 2.5 weeks now. It sucks.
No, I said that we would let you explain everything so that way I wouldn't jumble anything up and mess up. So we wanted to make sure, and I'd let everybody know that you were okay. That it of course pneumonia is bad and the flu is bad, but it wasn't anything like super life threatening. So
Yeah, the flu sucks. Pneumonia sucks. The flu and pneumonia and being pregnant really sucks. Let's just leave it at that, I guess. I don't know. Um, But yes, y'all, we have some stuff to talk about today. Um, so obviously we have movie news question mark to talk about. Um, but we are going to be splitting up some of the topics. I am actually going on vacation, baby mooning, the like technically traveling next week, but like going to the baby moon and I'll be gone for a full week. So Clay's in charge of the episode afterwards, but we're recording next week's episode on Sunday, so you guys will still have an episode with me next week. That will be on the Young Jedi Adventures season 1 because new episodes, and I just learned this today, are dropping February 7th for
oh
Young
wow,
Adventures.
okay.
Yeah. I saw that today. So yeah, we will be talking about the current batch of Young Jedi Adventures episodes next week. But since we've got that episode on Sunday, we're gonna split up the news just a little bit. So you're still hearing it a little bit delayed, but at least we're talking about some news and it's not as long of an episode. So um, but yes, we'll be talking bigger topics today. So don't worry. But of course, first things first, we have to get our opening credits in. So today's episode of Percy Jackson and the Olympians um, is oh gosh, it's a God buys me a cheeseburger, right? That's the title.
Yes, yes.
Um, and this episode covers, and I meant to look up the chapters and I forgot. But it covers a good portion of the book, um, and changes a lot of details. But I don't know if I'm necessarily mad about the changes.
I I'm not 100% angry at the changes. Again, it's even with this episode, I don't even think I'm upset at the pacing. The first, what is this? This is episode 5. I think the first 4 episodes were still a little wonky with the pacing. I did kind of like the change that the Seattle Arch was an actual tribute and temple for Athena. I thought that was
Yeah.
very interesting, other than just uh Annabeth kind of being uh, just super fixated on architecture and then saying like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm going to build, the best temple for Athena." You still kind of get that, but there's a reason behind her loving the Seattle Arch that goes a little bit more in depth with her character. So I did like that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It gave Annabeth a lot of character, and especially with some, because I have been keeping up with the previous episodes, it just gives her more than, oh yeah, I want to be this awesome architecture. And there's nothing wrong with the way that's treated in the book, but it just gives her more depth, which I can appreciate that they chose to do. Um, my gosh, I just had so this is so a god buys us cheeseburgers is chapter 15. And
It
um
I think that covers a good chunk, 15, 16, and I wanna say 17 also, but I think they switched a couple of details, like the ending of this episode, I think technically oh, well, no, because 'cause they're going
no,
to
this
Vegas.
only covers 15.
It
This is
only
literally
covers
only
15?
15. Yeah, because 16 is we take a zebra to Vegas. So it covers like the first part of 16,
Mhm.
but the end of chapter 16 is like it has it's the Lotus Casino scene.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I
So
think
chapter
we've talked about how that might be one of our favorite episodes
yeah,
coming up.
chapter 15 is beefy compared to like the rest of it. It's well, no, it's not really. They expanded a lot in this episode, I feel like. Um I like that we got to see Hephaestus. Um, Timothy Osmondson, I think.
Yes.
I thought he did a really good job, and kind of getting to hear that different side of Hephaestus' story. And again, seeing Annabeth grow as a character, really did a lot for her in like as far as like moving from like, oh yes, Athena this, architecture this. It helps her a lot. And, like, in the later books, because I know you haven't read the later books, so I'm not gonna go into huge depth, but this feels like the Annabeth we're getting in the later books, so I don't know how much more they can add to her character, I guess, but it's good to kind of get that basis in very good.
I did like that, the talk about how, like, "Oh, you're so much more than this," and, uh, when he was talking about Athena, it's like, "Hey, these things just happen," and, it's the same story that all of them have got, like, "Oh, you're just a child of this god, so, you're kind of put into this box," type of thing, uh, but I really liked his performance, I kind of wanted a little bit more from him, just because I know we do get a little bit more in the book, and they changed it dramatically.
Hephaestus
The
does not get any time in this book.
I thought you still saw him, well, quote unquote, saw him doing the announcements during because in the book, all three of them are at the amusement park, not just Annabeth and Percy. It is
Right.
Grover as well, and there's somebody broadcasting it as far as like basically doing the play by play of like everything that they're doing in the music part. I thought he was there, or was it just like I thought
Um,
I thought that's how it went. Now I don't know if they physically see him or if they just hear him over like an intercom or whatever at the amusement park. That's what I
yeah.
thought.
I don't think they might hear, like, some announcer. I'm not, like, reading this word for word, I'm just trying to figure it out. Yeah, they don't ever mention Hephaestus by name, so he might be doing the announcements, but they don't know that.
Okay, okay. Um, but that was a big thing that I kind of like hesitated on when I was watching the episode
Mhm.
when uh Ares was like, "Hey, y'all can go, but he stays." I was like, don't change this too much." But
I like what they did with Grover.
I do like what they did with Grover. This, of course, goes into the idea that Grover isn't just some dumb satyr. And I'm not saying he's dumb in the book, but you get to see his brain at work here with Ares. He's kind of doing reverse psychology. Now, the episode ends with the one line from Grover saying, "I know who stole the bolt." If he says the actual thief, I don't know how much I'm gonna like that.
I don't I don't think he's gonna say the actual thief because I don't feel like there was anything in the conversation that we saw that led to the actual thief.
True. I will give you that.
I think
Um
he's gonna bring up Clarice. I th because he said Ares specifically says, "I don't like kids. I I don't even like my own kids. I like them a little bit more."
Oh, that's true. That's true. I didn't even think about that. If Grover kind of jumps the gun and blames her, that kind of gets people thinking of her instead of the actual thief.
Yeah.
Um, I might like that a little bit more. Seeing, I guess we'll just have to go down the rabbit hole a little bit more to see how that goes. Um, Going back to the amusement park, again, adding Percy's mom a little bit more into the story. When they're in the tunnel of love, you see the story of Hephaestus,
Yeah.
and uh, again, Percy is like, "Oh, my mom told me this story all the time," and he goes and he tells Annabeth about it, and it goes on to this whole thing about like, because at the beginning of the episode, he's all gung ho, like, "Oh, my dad's gonna help us. He's awesome," and all of this other stuff,
Yeah.
and then he has these doubts in the tunnel, like, "Oh, this is how all guards are. They're just like they just want to kill each other. They want to fight each other. They're always angry at each other." And he's like, "Well, Annabeth, maybe you were right. Like, maybe this isn't for me and everything else." And she's kind of holding back because their relationship has gotten a little bit stronger. And it's like, no, like maybe your mom told you this and you're better for it. Like, you're going to change the way the gods look at each other, and you're going to change the way us demigods look at each other. Um, so I like putting that more into Percy. I'm not entirely sure if I like, because it happens in the same way. Percy is just finding out these things about him, power wise and his strength wise and all of these other things. Um, but in the book, everything just kind of happens on happenstance. It just like, he stumbles upon these things. Whereas here, in the last episode, he was like playing the not the sacrificial lamb, but like the hero and like trying to save Annabeth and Grover and quote unquote sacrificing himself. Uh and I l- I don't necessarily like that because it's just falling into the tropes of everything else that's going on with heroes and stuff. Whereas in the book, I think it's a little bit more appropriate because of, he didn't know any of this stuff. It wasn't really big that his mom was really involved with the stories of the gods and everything else. So when stuff happens, he's figuring out as he goes. So I think I like that a little bit more than what I'm seeing here, but it's still very fluid and it's still going really well with the show.
Yeah. My biggest thing with the changes they made in this episode is, the move to kind of bring up Ares in the time frame, because they do end up at St. Louis, but then and I don't remember how they do this, but they end up in Utah, which is where the amusement park and the diner and Ares all take place, is in
Mhm.
Utah, right?
Mhm.
So I just looked it up out of curiosity. St. Louis to Las Vegas is 22-hour drive.
Mhm.
And Aries is like, "Yeah, he'll get you there by tomorrow at lunch."
Well,
And then you
the so from what I remember, I can't remember how quickly they go to the amusement park and then, give Ares, I think it's a shield in the book as well. I can't remember.
yeah,
Um, but they get the shield and then they stumble upon this train. It's not a truck, it's a train. No, no, no. Maybe it is a truck because
yeah,
they
it's a
have
truck.
it's a truck, and that's when, spoiler alert for next episode, we're gonna see some animals that Percy is going to interact with and Grover's gonna interact with.
Yeah.
Um,
So they go to Denver after St. Louis. It's not Utah. Um, but they get on board a train at an Amtrak before they get
Yes.
spotted to go to Denver. So, and I get that wouldn't have been as fluid in the show, but like
The
I
the
was like,
the
"Mm,
Well, the thing that's really like, again, you have to kind of crunch things up because in the book, you start off with them telling Percy, you have 2 weeks. I think it was even 3 weeks. You have 3 weeks to figure all this out with the bolt until the summer solstice. Whereas in the beginning of the show, they tell Percy, hey, you have 7 days.
I think
So
it's 10 days in the book."
no way. It's not 10 days. I think it's 3 weeks. It is. 'Cause
I'm gonna
the train takes a couple days. They stay the night in New York and New Jersey a couple times. Uh, then they travel again out of state. They travel a lot, and it's more than 10 days for sure, I wanna say. Um, but that's what you get even, when Ares pulls up in the motorcycle in this episode. He's like, "Man, y'all are way behind schedule."
Yeah.
So, it's a little wonky with how traveling is. It's almost like the supernatural effect. Katie, I know you'll know this more than anybody. Sam and Dean can get anywhere in
Yeah.
less than a day's travel. In Supernatural, and that's basically what they're doing in this show, is they're just boom, 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 boom. They're getting to where they need to be just because it's story-wise. But there are going to be people that's like, "Oh, well, technically, it's, 6 days travel to do this and 2 days walk to do this." And you're gonna have those people. Again, the show isn't meant for you to look everything under a
I
microscope.
know, but those are the things that bug me as, like, a reader. I'm like, "That is unrealistic, excuse me, like, what the heck are you talking about?" Because we all know it's gonna take a day and a half. It's not gonna take 22 hours for a trucker to drive there. Like,
I mean,
it's gonna take a day.
it would be completely different if they were like, "Oh, yeah, from New York to Denver was less than a day." Like, that if they actually did the supernatural travel, that would bother me. Uh, but, I mean, it is what it is so far. Um, but overall, I think this was a good episode. I can't remember the actor who played Ares. I think he was a perfect casting for
Yeah,
this.
he was
Uh,
great.
he has uh, the mean mug face of a biker, which is what you first are introduced to as Ares, both in the show and in the book.
Yeah.
Um, and I like the way you have to put it to where it's, like, modernized, so, like, he's having arguments on Twitter and stuff like that, it's very silly, um, but I like the way he carried himself, even when he got angry at times, and then when Grover was kinda sweet talking him, he's like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I really enjoy your company now, like, talk more about me, I like that."
Yeah.
So
The guy who, plays Ares is Adam Joseph Copeland, AKA Edge from AEW.
yes, yes, Edge. That's what I knew him from. Like I knew I recognized his face. Yeah, he's a wrestler. He made appearances on The Flash and things like that. His acting career has gone up a bit. Um, but yeah, really enjoyed this episode. Is there anything else that you want to add at all?
So, I couldn't find it in the book, so I went to riordan.fandom.com, AKA Wikipedia, for
Mhm.
nerds. Um, in this, which I would trust this, Percy has 10 days before the summer solstice.
I have to look this up. If I have to listen to it again, I will. But I'm pretty
There's
sure they had like 2 weeks tops
mm-mm,
to do it.
because the like, the beginning portion, they travel pretty quickly, and they spend
Mhm.
5 days in the Lotus Casino. So that gives them like 18 hours or 2 days. I think it's 2 days they have left. So
That sounds that sounds right, yeah.
they get across like the eastern half of the United States pretty quickly.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Okay. I mean,
there's
I'll
the Wikipedia link and you can go
I'll
listen
give
to
it
it
up
again.
to the Wikipedia guys, I guess. But either way, I thought it was good. Um, I'm really curious how, um, because we've seen a lot of these moments with, Annabeth and Percy. Um, I kinda wanna get more of these moments with Grover and Percy. I know that you're supposed to know that they are already supposed to be really good friends, but we still had what I think is a very significant part of their lives where Grover threw him under the bus. They had that moment of like, "Hey, I trust you. You're going on this quest with me, but I want more time with them." That's
Yeah.
what I want.
They've definitely sacrificed that, I think that relationship, I think, in the name of building everyone else up. We talked a lot about it with the opening episodes in particular
Mhm.
because of how much they cut out of the opening, especially, them going back to New York together, um, after the school ends instead of what we get, what we get in the show, which is Percy being expelled. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, just as, like, a general thought on the last 2 episodes since I missed those, I thought both episodes were good. I there's not been the only thing that has really bugged me about the changes from the book to the show is them not showing the prophetic dreams, that Percy has.
That's what I'm a little annoyed at it. Um, More so because we got it at the beginning of last episode, not this episode. Last episode, I think we got a little bit more of his nightmares, not necessarily
Yeah,
the dreams, but the nightmares of what is going to be revealed at the end of the season, I'm pretty sure. For those of you who haven't read the book. But we're getting those very sporadically. Like in the book, it is happening consistently almost every single
yeah, it's
time
happening
Percy
nightly.
is going to sleep. Exactly. Especially these dreams of Zeus and Poseidon arguing. It is like we haven't had these two mentioned almost at all. Like we've only had them mentioned in this episode when Grover and Ares were talking. Oh, like of course, Ares mentioning his dad Zeus, and Grover saying like, "Oh, Zeus is angry about his bolt, and
Yeah,
like Hades might do this." Like it's very subtle in conversation, but in the book, there was so much tension about getting the bolt because of this argument between Poseidon and Zeus that's non-existent here.
yeah, I have to wonder if maybe Reddick didn't finish all of his scenes as Zeus because we get
Oh.
the horse and the eagle fighting, and then we just I think there's 3. There's water versus lightning, and then there's the horse versus the eagle, and then there's the 2 men.
Yes, the wrestling, basically the wrestling match, that
Yeah,
he dreams about, and we haven't gotten any of those. I think if anything, you can kind of say that in the dream there was, I think the first dream, there was the beach in the ocean in the middle of a storm, and you can
yeah,
kind of say like, "Okay, that was them," but other than that, we haven't seen anything else.
yeah. So I wonder if Reddick didn't get those scenes filmed. Um, I don't remember how because I vaguely remember them saying for some reason, I think I had seen that he had filmed everything, but I also couldn't find that on the Wikipedia page.
I would
Um,
like to see,
so
like, if we go back on, like, either Twitter or maybe, like, Hollywood Reporter or whoever broke the story of them finishing filming compared to when he had passed. I kinda wanna see how far apart that was. Um, Again, he I can't I can't even remember when, or what was the cause of his passing again? Was it an illness, or do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, because I would be
Hang on, I'm
curious to
gonna
see
pull it up.
if he had to stop filming because of an illness, and then they were just like, "Ah, I think you're good. Just go, get rest,
Heart
get
disease.
better." Heart disease, yeah.
Heart
So
disease in March, and I believe, um, I believe they finished filming right before the strike. So, that would have been beginning well, writer strike started beginning of May, and then
so it
SAG
says
was June.
here, um, concluded filming in February of 2023.
Oh, I missed that. That's right in front of my face. I totally missed
Yeah.
that. So, yeah, then he would have finished filming his scenes.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would really want to know why they didn't include that.
Mhm.
So, that would be something that I would like to ask Raiden. But I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, do you wanna move on to our first piece of news for a Star Wars Alliance then?
Yes. So we can do that. I'm gonna pull that up. Um, so just to kind of roll things along really quickly, um, so we're gonna be talking about the Mandalorian news today, and then some potential expansion for the Tales of the Jedi franchise. That's kind of gonna be our topics today. So the first thing for Mandalorian is that Mandalorian season 3 actually won an Emmy for stunts, and I believe this has been a consistent win for them. But congratulations to all involved on the production staff. Very well done. Um, the second bit of news is one that actually came out yesterday. Um, and so it's kind of like a two-parter. So StarWars.com has said that the next Star Wars movie is not going to be the Rey Skywalker movie. It is actually going to be The Mandalorian and Grogu, and that is the title that they used in the article.
I was
Directed by
wondering about
Jon
this.
Favreau.
So, I have been very busy at work, and then very tired after work. And so I just literally scroll through all the stuff that you guys talk about in the GUA chat and then get like a very big summary of everything with y'all's conversations going back and forth. And then I'm done for the day usually. So I wasn't able to take a huge deep dive into this, but I kept seeing Mandalorian and Grogu, just that phrasing, and I was like, "Is that the title of the movie?" I'll tell you this, that's not a very sexy title for
It's
a
not.
movie that a lot of we've talked about this before. The idea of this becoming these TV show characters headlining a movie, you cannot assume that everyone in the world has seen The Mandalorian. They're not going to know who these individuals are. They may see what they know as Baby Yoda still in passing, whether it be because of a sticker they see on a car or somebody with a t-shirt or whatever. But these people, the general audience, of course they're going to just see Star Wars and be like, "Okay, let's go see a Star Wars movie." But like, how do you do this? Because again, we've seen different titles of Star Wars films that of, the episodic titles. We have then Solo, a Star Wars story, and then we have Rogue One. Like they've tested the waters with things like this, and Rogue One was really good for them. Solo was not, unfortunately. So you guys really need to work that title. That's just my idea.
That was probably the biggest negative reaction I saw to this, other than how do you take a TV series and move it to the movie? And the fact that the second part of our news is that Deadline reports that actually season 4 of The Mandalorian is still in development. So this is not going to be the end for The Mandalorian and Grogu. It's just going to be the next step.
Okay, so hold on,
Did you
because
miss
that
that?
I missed that part. I thought this was going to be season 4 just turned into a movie. That's what we had previously talked about, and I thought this was just being confirmed that that was gonna happen. But now you're telling me that it's going to be a movie, and then the story continues in the TV show?
Yes. That
This
is what Deadline reports. StarWars.com mentioned the movie and Ahsoka season 2, and that was it. And we're going to talk about Ahsoka season 2 for next week's episode, y'all. But that was what
this
StarWars.com mentioned.
this hurts my head. This hurts my head. And not so much because I'm not able to follow it. I'm if this ends on any kind of cliffhanger, you might see a small increase in Disney Plus subscriptions when season 4 drops. You're not going to see the amount that you want. You're not going to see the equivalent of the box office jumping into your Disney Plus subscriptions. It's just not going to
Yeah,
happen.
especially with that title. And like the biggest thing is that now you're asking people, and don't get me wrong, Disney has been asking people to do this for the MCU. Not quite
Mhm.
yet, but they've been asking you to like pay attention to what's going on in Disney Plus so that you can be aware of what's going on the big screen.
Yeah.
But now you're asking Star Wars fans who the vast majority are film fans, and that's it.
Mhm.
Now you're asking them to say, "Okay, here's my next movie." And no, you're gonna have to go do all this homework. Now maybe it's gonna serve as a bigger purpose. Maybe this is a lead in to the Heir to the Empire movie, and that's why they're doing this. This is gonna be a smaller budget movie to kind of catch you up to all the stuff, and then set Mando and Grogu off to go face Thrawn. Maybe that's their whole goal here, is small budget movie to say, "Okay, I want to welcome all of the film Star Wars fans into this part, maybe build some Disney Plus subscribers, and then go off to Heir to the Empire."
My thing though, again, just like I said, your box office is not gonna equal out to what you're hoping that your Disney Plus subscribers will be when season 4 drops. I'm worried about the ending of the movie already. I haven't even heard what their idea is for the movie. Of course, we assume that it's going to be the beginning of what Filoni has described as Heir to the Empire. Like that's I assume that's what it will be. But for me, like you said, MCU has done this kind of in a way that okay, you saw Endgame, or yeah, you saw Endgame, and then it jumped right into Loki, I guess, or not even. That's the thing. The first Disney Plus show was
WandaVision.
WandaVision, which was kind of like where did we get the seeds of that in the MCU was I would say oh gosh
Um, the seeds for that would be Infinity War.
it would be
Uh,
Infinity War. So you went to Infinity War, then Endgame, and then WandaVision. But to really understand WandaVision, you would have had to have watched Infinity War, of course, which most people would. But my idea is like Endgame, you didn't get the seeds you got the seeds for Loki, but you didn't get Loki until a whole nother show after, right?
mhm.
So there was still time between. My worry is with this, you're going from a movie and you're saying, hey, the seeds, because we already, the whole GUA has a very big problem with the ending of season 2 of The Mandalorian, then the Book of Boba Fett, and then the beginning of season 3, right?
Yeah.
So just imagine that happening with this movie in season 4. Are you just erasing the importance of the movie or are you erasing the importance of season 4?
I think probably what's happening here is that probably with the strike, they said, "We want to get season 4 of The Mandalorian out. We want to get the next step of The Mandalorian out as soon as possible." And so with with the WGA strike, they had to go in and create a writer's room, but maybe in doing a movie, they can kind of get away with the script a little bit more, with it just being written by Favreau and Filoni. And so in doing it this way, they cannot waste what was the original season 4. And they just
Okay.
cut out the fluff episodes and just kind of put the plot all together for this movie and go, "Okay, here's where we're going start to finish."
Yeah.
And you have to change some things to, like, handle a different time frame versus, like, the gaps that you can get with a TV show. But I think that's maybe what this move is indicative of, is that they want the next bit of The Mandalorian out ASAP, and so they make this move, and then they can still have a season 4, which takes place before Filoni's movie. But then this is kind of because, I mean, realistically, if you could be done filming by the end of the year, you could have this out for holiday season 2025. 100%.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And now I think a lot of people are saying this is gonna be 2026 movie, and then Filoni will be 2028. I realistically think that they're trying to go, "Okay, if I film a TV show, it's gonna take me 6 months, 4 to 6 months, and then I have to have a year of production." Whereas
S
I could film a
so
movie in a week. Not
but
weeks,
here's
but
here's
weeks.
here's here's the thing though. I don't know if you guys had a huge discussion about this or not. I can't remember. But is this being turned into a movie to incentivize Pedro Pascal to still have a relationship with Lucasfilm?
That is the question because Deadline also said in their article that Pedro has not currently signed on for the film. It is unknown if he will reprise his role. However,
Oh,
in
really?
interviews, Pedro has always said that he really wants to do a film as the Mandalorian, which everybody thought was going to be Heir to the Empire, and then boom, he can go off in a happy sunset.
Mhm.
Like, that's his ending. Does this incentivize him to stay a little bit longer to get to that movie? I'm thinking now this was before I saw the Deadline post, but I was thinking, "Okay, this is season 4. MCU said, 'I want Pedro and I want him now.' So let's finish out the Mandalorian storyline, and then I can move on."
'Cause we still have no updates on Fantastic Four, as far as I know. So, like, w for Lucasfilm, it's really you're just counting down the days until Pedro says, "Adios," you know? So, I mean, I guess they would need to push it out as quickly as possible to keep him on board. We've already seen not only movies, but actors leaving projects, and movies being delayed indefinitely because of the delays of the strike. Um, which means, of course, these actors have things up and coming. I think Pedro's biggest one, of course, is Reed Richards and as Mr. Fantastic in the MCU. So, like, I'm
And the man
I'm
is still
hesitant
very
with this,
busy.
but
We've
we'll
talked about
see.
we've talked about his schedule a lot, so I don't wanna go, like, back into it. But yeah, Last of Us season 2, which I think after that he's done, isn't he? Technically, based on the game?
Not gonna answer that question. Just not gonna spoil anything for people who
Not
still
gonna
haven't
watch
played
the
the
show.
game. Eh, I haven't played the game, but I've already been spoiled, so I'm not gonna spoil anybody else. I'll just say that.
Whatever,
Um,
whatever. I think
but
eh
they've already said that they are splitting the game up into 2 seasons. So it's gonna be
oh, did
season
they? I
2
missed
and
that.
season 3. So season 2 doesn't necessarily mean that, Pedro Pascal is completely done or whatnot. So,
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
The other
Um,
thing too is and Joe brought this up in the chat, Pedro wasn't on set at all for Mandalorian season 3, but he did all of the voice work still. So he could realistically do the same exact thing. However, and Snell said this and I agree with him, if you're going to the big screen, I need to see Pedro Pascal's face.
And Pedro has made a pretty big staple in Hollywood recently. I mean, he just recently, I say just recently, but I think it was already a year ago now. His movie with Nicolas Cage, like his name is only getting bigger and bigger. As soon as everybody sees him in those blue spandex for Mr. Fantastic, boom, I think he's gonna make another resurgence in Hollywood, and more stuff. But like I have to agree. If you're gonna put The Mandalorian on the big screen, there's gonna be people who have not seen the show, who don't understand the quote unquote rules of the Mandalorian race and not showing their face and everything else. They're gonna hear that voice. They're gonna want to like, hey, that's Pedro. They're gonna hear, oh, Pedro Pascal's in this movie, and then they're not gonna see his face. I think that's gonna be a big problem for people.
Yeah.
So
I guess we'll see what happens. Because obviously we don't have a lot of news. Hopefully we'll get a casting report from Star Wars. I would as- I would assume this project is still going to be shot on the volume um and not go to like different locations and everything because that's just what they've been doing. Um that was the other thing I forgot to bring up with Percy Jackson is it was dark today.
oh my
And I
god.
hate that.
Abby had the light on today while I was watching. I was like, "Turn it off. Turn it off." And she like only lowered the volume on the light, and I was like, "No, you have to turn it off. Like I can barely see anything. Just go ahead and turn it off."
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was only for like a short amount of time. There's other scenes with like a good amount of light, but yes, very very
Yeah.
dark. Um, yeah,
Yeah. So I'm not huge into them sticking with the volume. I wish they'd move away, but it is what it is. I'm still gonna be watching.
cheap filmmaking.
So
That's what they want. They want it to be as cheap as possible, make as much money as possible. That's just how Hollywood works.
yeah, unfortunately. I do want to give credit to the report. This was originally reported by Jeff Snyder, who is an asshole, but he reported it originally, so I'm gonna give him credit. Um, so yes. Okay, so the last bit of news that we're going to talk about is not a release date for any of the TV shows that are coming out this year for Disney Plus, aka Bad Batch, Acolyte. Where's the trailer? Where's the trailer, people? Like, come on. Skeleton Crew. Jeez, Louise. Um, so, this report has been summarized by Star Wars Newsnet, but they are reporting from Star Wars Sessions podcast, which I have never heard of this podcast before. It looks like an English podcast. It's their website says probably Britain's greatest Star Wars podcast. So there you have it. Um, so Star Wars Newsnet has summarized this for us. Basically, they have heard that Tales of something is happening, and that it could be Tales of the Sith, Tales of the Bounty Hunters. I think we're both in love with this idea.
I am all for more animation. Um, I would be a little less enthusiastic about Tales of the Bounty Hunters, just because we just had a whole year and a half, 2 years of bounty hunters in comics. So that's just me personally. Tales of the Sith, I think, would be very interesting. If they want to go in depth, if like is this spinning out of Acolyte? Is this going to like go into uh Darth Plagueis? Like I want to know like where are they starting with this? Because we saw in Tales of the Jedi, we saw some of the early years of Qui-Gon Jinn, a uh a master and Jedi Knight of Count Dooku. So like there were some stories there that I wanted to see that I got. I think Count Dooku's a very interesting character, and I think a lot of people are kind of tired of him, but I love him. Um, so Tales of the Sith, I'm 100% for it. Let's do it.
I don't necessarily wanna see Dooku because I feel like we've gotten enough of his story, especially with, Dooku Jedi Lost,
Yes,
kind
that's
of
true.
covers that intermittent time between what we got in the end of Tales of the Jedi for him and then, Clone Wars. So I
Hmm.
think to me, I've seen enough of Dooku. What I'm looking for potentially is maybe we get our first canon appearance of Plagueis. Um,
Yeah.
that would be really cool to me. Maybe in that midst, seeing Palpatine come to Plagueis and being his apprentice, kind of that, would be cool. I'm gonna disagree with you on Bounty Hunters, but that's specifically because Bounty Hunters is taking place in the original trilogy time frame, and I think there's a lot of the bounty hunters that we can get in the prequel trilogy, which I know I'm sticking prequel trilogy here,
Hmm.
but I mean, you could do I don't think they'll do Jango Fett because we have a Jango Fett comic coming,
Hmm.
but you could do some more early Boba Fett time. Maybe you get into the time between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, that 19-year period. Could do some stuff there. The other one that I was gonna say, and I can't remember her name for the life of me, but it's the white alien, white girl alien with, like, the antenna.
Oh yes. I see her face. I can't remember her name. I'm gonna have to look that up now.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
No, that is not I looked up white girl alien with antenna Star Wars, and it pulls up Rodian,
Star Wars
and
Bounty
it's
Hunter. Uh, no, that's not her.
Quest for Vengeance.
Not wait, that's not her. That's a ponytail. Oh wait,
Well, she's pretty much bald, so she has a
yes.
ponytail.
Uh,
Yes.
Aura, Aura.
Yes, Aura Singh.
Yes,
Aura Singh.
yes.
Um, I would love to see some stuff on her. The other one you could do, is Zam Wesell, the bounty hunter that Jango Fett ropes in to kill Padme at the beginning of Attack of the
Yeah.
Clones.
Hmm.
Gets you some feminine representation there. You might consider Zam, um, non-binary, so, like, could get some really cool representation in there by going in that direction. Um,
There's also, I will say this, just like how there is some missing time in, like, or not necessarily missing time, but random moments that we get in Tales of the Jedi with some early Qui-Gon Jinn and stuff. You
yeah,
can fill in some gaps with Boba Fett still, because even in Clone Wars, there's good amounts of time that
yeah,
passes when we see him as a child, and then when he kind of goes out on his own. So I think that would be interesting to kind of add that into Tales of the Bounty Hunters if that becomes a thing.
yeah, yeah, you totally could.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's about it though. Um, for the news we're going to talk about today. Did you have anything else?
Just a last note on Tales of the Sith, if it happens. I know a lot of people were introduced to the Sith lineage of stories with Bane. If they were to tell a Bane story in Tales of the Sith, I think that would be pretty cool
Yeah,
too.
especially with the fact that he's already appeared in Clone Wars, that would be another good one.
Hmm.
Especially showing the
Oh,
origin of
what
the
if they
rule of
did the
2.
Lost episode?
Was there a lost episode for Darth Bane?
Yes, you can look up the interview with Dave Filoni. They like did pre-animation on it, they just didn't finalize it, and he finally went back to Lucas, and they were like, "Yeah, no, this is probably not the best idea. We can we can do better things." So they scrapped it. So there's still probably archive
Mm,
concept art and footage and stuff that they still have. So
that could be really interesting.
that would be cool.
Alrighty, so the main topic for today, we are going back into Star Wars Legends, to talk about the Jedi Academy trilogy by Kevin J. Anderson. And the second book is Dark Apprentice. So this book is available mass market paperback and Kindle. Do not trust the audiobook. I always say that with like these Legends books, don't fall for it.
Yes.
The
Do
abridged
not
version's not worth
use
it.
any do not use any credits to listen to 3 chapters of a book. Just don't do it.
Yes. And
um
my Kindle is in the other room. Okay, but I
I'm
remember what I wanted.
I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the hottest of takes of this
Okay.
book. This book is the unfortunate second book of a trilogy that basically does what every other second novel, second movie unfortunately falls into. And that is, hey, don't do anything so that way everything can be resolved in the third book.
Mhm.
This book, Katie, was so boring. Nothing happens. Again, there are moments. I will say there is some cool moments in this book, but overall, I feel like nothing was accomplished. They spent way too much time with the kids playing hide and seek and then getting lost in a museum. Like I was so fed up. And like even when there's a moment in time where they like get captured and then they run away after they get captured and they're saved by like basically like a underground king and that turns into nothing. It literally turns into nothing. I was so upset. This is so like every single time I thought this book was going to give me something, it just fell flat. It fell flat.
Okay, so I wanna say this actually comes back up, but it doesn't come back up until the Yuzhan Vong series.
So it's not even in this trilogy.
No. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my
Uh,
gosh.
what is his name? I gotta look this up now. Orga Underground King of Coruscant Star Wars Legends.
This was like those episodes that I skip in Clone Wars with like the R2D2 Jar Jar Binks episodes in Clone Wars that I just totally skip all the time. This book was one of those that I was just like, let's just move on. Like I know I'm reading this for a reason. And like I said, there's good moments. There are moments with um 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 oh shoot. Uh who
So we
was
get a
the
lot with Luke on Yavin 4, obviously.
yes.
We get Leia, we get some Akbar, and we even get to go to uh his home planet, and get to meet Hall, which I love Hall. She's such an important role. She's such an important Jedi that gets to play a huge role in future books. Um
Oh, like all of the Akbar stuff. I like that. I like the Akbar stuff. At one point, I thought he ate it. I thought he died. I thought I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting way to go out." And I thought literally just because the way the chapters went on, they didn't really talk about like if he survived or not yet. So it just
yeah.
moved on to a different setting and I was just like, "Okay, we just said goodbye to Akbar and nobody's acknowledging it whatsoever." Um but it goes into more detail, like, and that is like a story of like PTSD and depression and like falling into oneself and like habits and stuff when he goes back to his home planet, and like then he gets like hyped up and he's like all like headstrong and sits up straight and like becomes his the admiral again. Like I love that. That was fun. I did enjoy those moments, but everything around those small moments was just, I couldn't, Katie, I couldn't.
So what did you think about Exarchon between and Exarchon is a Dark Lord of the Sith. Um where is friggin' there's no link in this Wikipedia article for Exarchon. That's annoying. Um Exarchon is a Dark Lord of the Sith who was um who was defeated by the Jedi Order and but in not being defeated, he instead defeated the what is it the Monsori population of Yavin. He absorbed all of them and used their essence to make himself a home in the temples as a spirit.
Basically, he Hulk himself into the
Yes, that's yeah.
Yavin temple. Um, he was an interesting character, and I liked the way, because it comes full circle with Gantoris.
Mhm.
Gantorius meets his demise very early in this book. Um, but in the first book, Gantoris, when he meets Luke, he's like, I've been having this dream where a dark man is going to teach me the ways of the Force, and then he's going to strike me down. And Luke was like, that ain't me, but we'll keep an eye on that. That's really weird for somebody who can use the Force. Visions and stuff can be very tricky. And we learn that the Dark Man is actually Exar Kun. Um, so I really enjoy. So like, it's become this like it's especially when you read it, Gantoris and Kipteron fall into the same trap of, I'm gifted in the Force. All of these little plebs are very weak. These other students don't know anything like I know it. Um, and it's very weird. So, Gantoris builds a lightsaber out of scraps. He's like Tony Stark with a lightsaber.
Yeah,
Um, and it's so weird because he's not using kyber. They're
right.
using random stones and gems and stuff, and I'm like, this thing is going to explode in his hand and he's gonna lose a finger. But like, he builds a working lightsaber, and actually, like, I think the way they describe it, I think it's a double blade, if not like an extended blade. It's very odd the way they explain his
Um
lightsaber.
so basically what happened is so he built the lightsaber and I was trying to find it. Um It's a dual phase lightsaber. So what that means is he can basically twist the handle and then it extends out. So it
Okay, okay.
increases in length. And he actually used Karuska gems that he found near one of the Masasi temples. I said the wrong name earlier. But a Karuska gem it was extremely rare, valuable. They were produced in the atmosphere of gas giants, which Yavin Prime is a gas giant.
Mhm.
Um, so they were some of the hardest objects known to the galaxy. But despite their well-known strength, Karuska gems had shatter points. Um, Jason Solo used a Karuska gem worth the price of an entire Coruscant city block to power his lightsaber. And Gainer Rysode, which you haven't met him yet, was another Jedi known to use a Karuska gem in his lightsaber until it was destroyed by Jason Solo.
Very, very interesting. Like, when I was reading this, I was like, I literally had the meme. of Jeff Bridges, like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. But him and Kipteron both have
Yeah,
this like longing to learn more, and they're like, oh, Luke Skywalker is nothing. He stays in his lane. He doesn't want to learn anything else. And that is why they are so tempted by Exar Kun.
yep.
Um, which again, these moments were the ones that I'm like, okay, I want more of this. I want more of this. Gantoris, boom, like he is dead on arrival in this book. I thought he was going to play such a bigger role in this trilogy, and he just eats it. Um, I it's so funny because you read the way that they are thinking, and in your head, you're like, oh, that's not good. Like, yeah, no touchy of the dark evil things. Like, you don't need to know any of that stuff. You don't need to talk to the evil spooky ghost dude. Um and it just keeps going, and and of course this I can't even remember when this book was published. It's so old now. Um but like reading
1994.
94, oh my gosh, it's younger than me. Um um
It's older than
Kipteron
me.
Kipteron's story, I was so angry, but also so excited because Kipteron, like you saw in the first book, how like he was able to learn all these things from this old woman, and we saw his strength from the small little test that Luke gave at the end of that book, and you saw how much potential he had. I was like, okay, cool, he's going to be a force for good. And then this happens and you're like, son of a bitch. And I just love the very subtle like gift that Han gives him, which is like, I feel like Han probably stole this cloak from Lando at one point. Like it's got to be one of Lando's cloaks. Um,
I think Lando had given it to Han, and so
oh
Han just
really?
regifted it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. But it's like it's a black cloak. So like, I mean, Luke has a black cloak as well, but that's besides the point. But Kipteron has this black cloak that sparkles like galaxies. And so like he's like very suave, but also like super evil now. Um, and he is so stupid powerful. He is stupid powerful. He lifted this freaking sun destroyer,
Sun Crusher.
sun crusher, out of a planet by himself. By himself. And I'm just like the power level, like it for people can understand this in both movies and video games and TV shows. It's all over the place. But like, I feel like people make characters a little too strong, and it's just like, how could you ever defeat that? But the main goal of a hero's journey is to defeat the bad guy. So it's like it, it I guess it's in a way to be like, oh, these heroes overcome such a this large evil or whatever. So I get that, but he goes to, oh, what's her name? Uh, uh,
Weezoo.
yes, the scientist, right?
Yeah.
And
The
like
creator.
completely like she no longer knows anything about any of her scientific adventures of the empire. She has lost everything. And I'm just like, how? Why? Um, Again, I have never read this trilogy. I don't know how it ends. I don't know if Kipteron becomes a good guy again, if Luke has to strike him down. But like, this is it's insane. Um, and I know I'm hyping this moments up, and like I said my hot take, but I also said I like these things, some things in this book. I think majority of just the twins are just super annoying through this book. I think that was my big thing. They were like, "Mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, blah 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 blah. You're not my real mom. I hate you. This isn't my real home. Blah blah blah." Like,
Well, they're toddlers. You got a toddler coming, right? Like,
I do, but
if Amberlynn had spent 2 years away from you so that she could grow up safe and then came to you, what would happen?
I understand. I get it. But they didn't need to make what feels like 50% of this book those moments. Like,
You do need those moments for the next book. I'll just leave it at that.
I'll be the judge of that. Um, but there was also like this weird oh, what is her name? The right hand to Leia, the one taking care of the children.
Winter.
Winter, yes. Winter kind of hits on Admiral Akbar, kind of, in a
She's
weird
just
way.
lonely. That's it.
Sh
She's
sh I
lonely.
I mean,
She gets
I
she gets
ain't
an
gonna
adult
judge.
visitor once a month.
I ain't gonna judge, but, like, it was like, the conversation was very odd. Like, again, Akbar going to the planet in the first place, probably the worst idea he ever had, but at the same time, like, he's like he goes over there to say his goodbyes to Anakin, and then, uh Winter's just like, "Hey," pushing her sleeve off of her shoulder. "I'm a little lonely." You know? It was just weird. It was like just the way it all went down. I like when I read that, I was like, "Winter, there's a time and place. And this is not it."
She is not flirting with Akbar. She has been by herself with like one visitor a month for 3 years, managing these little kids.
I mean, granted, I have only taken care of my child for a year now, and I get insane when I'm alone with her for 45 minutes. So I understand Winter. I do. But I don't just start hitting on people the moment I see human contact. Just saying
Um,
it was weird. It was odd.
so, what did you think about, because we talked about Dala in the last episode, and you were like, "This could be interesting. I would like to see where this goes." How did you where did you end up with Dala at the end of this?
So Dala is of course the
Admiral Dala,
yeah,
the
Admiral Dala,
defender of the Maw installation that is no longer the defender of the
not
Maw
TC
installation.
Dala. She is still cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She is still like it's weird because she has these moments of like this longing for Tarkin still like she still has these moments of like, oh, I miss him and like all of this stuff, but then like she snaps out of it and she's like, no, I'm the most evil person in the galaxy, I need to rule everything. um she does snap once or twice in this book. um but like, so my question to you, it because one thing that we didn't talk about in the first book, and I question whether this is the same individual. In the first book, there was a I can't remember if it was a general or what his ranking was of the Empire, but he came to a party at uh, uh, uh with
At Coruscant.
at Coruscant, and then
He's
like
an
splashed his drink in Mon Mothma's face. Um, is he the
Ambassador
same
Fergan.
ambassador? Yes, Friggin. Is he the
He
same
makes
individual in this one that's like making the plan to go kidnap Anakin?
yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that dude is also cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I am very interested on Bergen and Dala crossing paths.
Um,
I don't know if it happens in this trilogy because Legends is apparently weird. And it's like, oh, let me plant these seeds for 6 books later, you know? But he Fergan reminds me of a Hitler. He is just like, oh, but this child, he is he is the grandson of Lord Vader, and he is going to be our ultimate ruler one day. We need to go get him. Like, that's just a little like, I understand like the universe and the galaxy of Star Wars, like the people who uh the Jedi and Sith were very put on a pedestal on both the rebellion side and on the Empire side. But just the way he kind of hyped up everybody in this like big speech where everybody was kind of like, okay, we're gonna steal this kid, so what? Like, yeah, I understand that she's a very important person in the Republic, but what's this kid got to do anything? And then he mentions that, and they're like, "Oh snap! Yeah, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it!" It's weird. But he very much reminds me of a very Heil Hitler type of character. So I really want him and Dala to to I'm sure their paths will cross. They're both wanting to keep the empire alive. Dala is more so like, hey, I'm the new, emperor basically. While uh, what's his name? Ferguson, uh,
Kurgan.
Bergen, he is very much a, hey, I'm gonna keep this alive. He hasn't really given me the idea that he wants to rule. He's just trying to keep the empire alive.
Um, so I think the allure with Anakin is the fact so the what is it? The it's the comic that takes place between Heir to the Empire and this trilogy.
Hmm.
Um, but in the final volume of that trilogy of comics, because it's another three-piece volume, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but in that final volume, Palpatine tries to kidnap Anakin so that he can transfer his spirit from the last clone that he has into Anakin.
Ah.
So there's a lot of allure with that, and that's a huge theme that plays into it plays across Anakin Solo's life, basically, where he's constantly afraid that he could turn to the dark side because of his exposure to Sidious's soul in that comic.
I mean, giving him the name of the one person that was the right hand of the emperor, like, your luck is already down, man.
Yeah, it was Leia's way of, like, coming to terms with her parentage and stuff and, like, being accepting of Vader as her father, in Legends. But yes, like, I think they even talk about that where Leia's like, "I screwed him with this name, like, I should have never named him this." So, yeah.
Wow.
Um,
I'm
I'm
trying
trying
to
to
think
think.
of there was another thread. Um oh,
What did you think? Did you sorry, you
no,
process
go
thoughts.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, what did you? Because did you know Akbar had was a slave to Tarkin?
I did not know that. That was something new, uh like finding out or whatever. Oh, and Travis is in the chat. He said he just started reading this book.
Yeah.
Um Travis, let us know how you feel about this book because I've had some pretty hot takes uh with how I read this book. Um we are doing well. Thank you for asking. Um Akbar, you know, I really liked his story. Like I said before, him going and like being reclused. There's even a moment at um Coruscant, like right after the incident, where like he's trying to say something, and Mon Mothma is like, like he basically is like slapping him on the hand, like, no, like you don't get a say in this and whatever. And he's just like, you know what, f this, and he like throws down his badge basically and
Yeah.
walks out. Um, and that's when we have the moment where he travels to go see Anakin in winter and all of that. But going back to his home planet, and being this recluse, I really like how they made it very real instead of just like he could have done so many different things. Um, he could have, you know, gotten a different, station somewhere else within the republic, or retired and no, like he even like was doing stuff for his home planet when he was there. It wasn't like he was doing nothing, but he was really under the radar. um but his backstory with all that with Tarkin was very, very interesting.
Yeah. Um, I don't remember how much it's played out. Travis says, "I found it weird there were so many scenes of Luke touching people with the Force, like he's shoving them, haha." Um, I I that might be my fault, Travis, and I responded to you in the chat. We're actually talking about Dark Apprentice, not
Yeah,
Jedi Search.
we're talking about the second book, not the first one. We've already talked about the first one, and you can find that episode in our podcast feed if you want to go check
Yeah.
it out.
It's 2 episodes back, I think, or
Mhm.
it may be 3 because I think we talked about Master and Apprentice, and then we skipped what was supposed
Oh,
to be this one.
that's
So it's 3 episodes back. But yeah, I hope we're not spoiling too much. Um, yeah, no Jello racing today. No Jello racing today. Um, yeah. No, I don't remember how much they go into Akbar and Tarkin's relationship. That might also take place in some of the Empire comics,
Mhm.
um, expansion, but I liked the characterization for Akbar. Learning more about his people was, like, really important to me, because we see so much of, like, their spaceships and everything. So, to kind of get, uh, the homeworld perspective was nice. It's also different between this and Clone Wars because in the Clone Wars, um, the, Mon Calamarians, can actually swim underneath, like, they can breathe underwater and stuff, and in this, they actually can't.
They can't, and it was
Um,
very interesting the way that like uh Leia and the
Klieg
person
Hall.
who, excuse me?
Klieg Hall.
Yes. She was force sensitive as well. And like the way they traveled underwater and stuff, and like they like bumped into like a huge water monster that they didn't really have to deal with
Yeah.
because she's like, oh, just wait, they're gonna actually go, that way and deal with them. And I thought that was really cool. Um, and just that also. Again, we don't get it as much as the first. And Travis, I know you're reading the book. In that first Jedi Academy book, we talked about how much we saw the um, the stress that Leia's going through as being a mother, as being a important role in the Republic, and all of that. We are doing a little bit of that because there's even a moment where I can't remember if it was in the first book or this book. I might be getting them jumbled up. Um, but she's in the presence of Mon Mothma, and somebody is like trying to get a hold of Leia, and Leia just like goes off and is just like, I am a mother too. Like, I am
Yeah.
doing all of these different things, and the Republic can wait literally 2 hours until I am done here.
Yeah.
And I think
I
it
think
was
that's
this
the
book.
first book.
Oh, was it the first book? Okay.
Yeah, because I think
Um,
it's because Mon Mothma doesn't make too much of an appearance
no, she
until
doesn't. I mean, there's a reason why. We learn that
yeah.
there's a reason why in this book. Not gonna spoil it for Travis here in the chat. Um, but I think that's gonna be playing in a very important role in this trilogy moving forward. Um, and it definitely plays a role in why Akbar will eventually make his return to the Republic. It doesn't necessarily say 100% in this book, but I think it'll definitely play a part later on. Um, but even that news was really big for me, who hasn't read Legends, only has known Mon Mothma through the movies and, of course, now the show of Andor. So it's very, very interesting. Travis says in the chat, haha, that exchange is the complete opposite of Princess and the Scoundrel, where Mon Mothma tries giving Leia a vacation and Leia doesn't want to stop working. Yeah, I we've talked about, especially in the first book, how um we are seeing a complete shift in the way the our public looks at Leia. And I think also woman empowerment and the stereotypes of women in a workplace and things like that. There's a huge shift in the way Leia is perceived. And not only that, the conversation that we had just prior to this, talking about Anakin and like Leia coming to terms with her lineage, that was even taken in a completely separate way in Princess and the Scoundrel, with how she didn't want anything to do with Vader and was telling Luke, like, hey, I'm going to deal with it in my own time, but like right now, that's not good for me. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Um, I think the other thing that kind of can cause the difference here is that this exchange is um 6 years off of Return of the Jedi versus Princess and the Scoundrel being minutes from the end of
Yeah,
Return of the Jedi.
that's very
So,
true.
um they're very different perspectives. The first book after Return of the Jedi is Truce at Bakura, and you can see Leia's very active in what she wants to do. The courtship of Princess Leia, which we said we were going to read and then we never really did, because kept having other things kind of come into the mix.
Yeah.
Um, but that one, she actually like takes time to kind of decide about a proposal from the Hapen Prince, um, who can bring a lot of money and value to the New Republic. And he proposes to her fully, and instead, like, what you have is then Han proposes because he's like, I love this girl. We've been dating, and like I need to marry her right now. And Leia actually has takes time to decide between the two proposals. So she is fully committed to her work. It's the motherhood that kind of alters her perspective. And it's been a while since I've read Bloodline, which Bloodline takes place Bloodline is a Claudia Gray novel that takes place in 28 ABY. So it's when Ben is training um, with Luke at his academy and everything. And I do believe that Claudia Gray expands her to like what she was wishing that she kind of had a little more power in with her relationship with Ben and her relationship with Han.
Yeah.
So that kind of it's not the same time frame, but yes, Bloodline is about 6 years prior to TFA. Thank you, Travis.
But Travis also mentions, and this is a great segue into the character of Lando that I want to talk about in this book. He says, one thing in New Canon that's thrown me off is how Lando is treated by the Republic. In the new comics, he's still sleazy and isn't trusted, which I think backtracks his arc in Empire. I do agree with that in some aspects. He he and Han in this book, they take the fight of the Falcon way too far in this book.
Yes.
Um, I can understand like a couple friends like, "Oh, I'm the best at this and you're not," and but they take they go as far as to ask C3PO to reprogram himself to basically being a gambling bot and saying, "Hey, you're going to be our dealer. We're going to play this game on shuffle rules," and they're fighting for the Falcon in this book. Now, I was gonna talk about Lando because I think it's hilarious how he's smitten for Mara Jade. He
Oh,
sees
he is
her,
so smitten.
he's like, "Hey, girl, what's up? What? Hey," and he does everything he possibly can to get close to this woman, like almost like teetering onto like the creepy side of it, but it's getting there. Like he he's like, "Huh, I need to borrow the Millennium Falcon. She needs a ride. Like I need to fly her. I need to do it. Like can I do it? Like we could go see Luke, but I need to fly. Like I need to take her to go see Luke. Like it's so weird."
And that resolves itself behind the scenes, after the next book. So you're still gonna see it in the next book. Um,
Mhm.
but there's a mission that they basically have to go on together, and after that, it's, like, over.
But
So
also, it's in this book that we get Mara Jade kind of twirling her hair for Luke.
mhm.
It's very subtle, very subtle. You really have to read between the lines, but, like, there's this moment where, like, they mention Luke's name and she kinda just, like, shrugs her shoulders like, "Hmm, I don't know."
It
Like,
was
he
always
knows
played
this.
into that.
Yeah.
You could tell me Lucas hated it, but he, like, read all these books, and he had control over certain things that he wanted to toss. He
Mhm.
had control. So, I think he always secretly wanted it to happen. Just saying.
Travis says, "I forgot he had a thing for Mara. I read the Thrawn trilogy, then jumped into the next Thrawn, 2 Thrawn novels when they mentioned that, uh, and I was lost." Yeah,
Yep.
he very much is smitten over Mara in this book, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
Well, it does take Luke 20 years to pull the trigger and say, "Hey, marry me," and we haven't even dated.
Well,
Like,
like, and there's even like all the signs are there, Luke. Luke is just again, he's very much driven by his want to be a Jedi master and to teach all of these younglings and all of this other stuff. I get it. Work before play is his mindset. But like Mara even goes as far as to get her own Jedi robes to impress him. Like,
yep.
that's another subtle it's a subtle thing. It's not just like, "Hey, I wanna be formal in this presentation to be trained." She did it for him, like, clearly. So, uh, Travis
If I
just says
recall he says, "If I recall, George's rules were you couldn't have a Death Star, bring back Vader, or kill Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, or the droids." Well, they technically have a Death Star. They technically have Death Star in this trilogy. It's a
e
prototype, but it is the Death Star.
I mean, every Star Wars movie has had some Death Star equivalent. I'll
Yeah.
just say that.
No, for sure. In regards to how Lando's being treated in the new comics, I would disagree with the backtracking his arc in Empire. I think he's and now don't get me wrong, I have not read I think I read through issue 30 um so far and I'm meaning to get caught up since I have the Marvel Unlimited now. But like I think that's just him being him. And kind of dealing with the hand he's been dealt. Um, he's still also bitter about losing Cloud City. So I don't think it backtracks anything when he's still kind of getting used to what's going on with
Mhm.
the rebellion. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion on the sleazy factor. Um, because I mean, obviously, Soul loves Lando. Like he wrote 2 Lando comics. So
Yeah.
Travis says, while a little inconsistent for me, I do think new canon is utilizing Lando much more than he ever was in Legends.
I do like his inclusion in the comics for sure, and even reading. Um, oh shoot, what is the
Shadows of the Sith?
no. Well, that too. I did really enjoy Shadows of the Sith. No, from a certain point of view, like his stories in a certain point of view, especially in Return of the Jedi. I really enjoyed his
Yeah.
story as well.
The I will say it's hard to say that new canon is utilizing Lando much more. He still makes an appearance in most of the stories in Legends, because I've read everything post Return of the Jedi. It's kind of the in in between the movies and the prequels that I haven't read everything. But Lando makes a lot of appearances. He's just not utilized as well, I would
Yeah,
say. He's being utilized more efficiently in canon, I would say. Um, the other question you had, Travis, was which timeline do you think has dealt with Leia's relationship with Vader better? Legends or new canon? Ultimately, I'm gonna be neutral on this. I think Legends and the new canon have taken different approaches and still gotten it right. Leia comes to terms with her relationship with Vader um faster in Legends, especially with her like with having 3 kids. She has to come to terms with the fact that, oh, I've got 3 kids now that have force powers, and I've got to figure this out like real quick. Um, Whereas new canon, I think she has to do a lot of adjusting. Um, but I still think the approach there was done well. Um, the main parts of her relationship are in Princess and the Scoundrel, and then Bloodline. Because Bloodline, the Senate finds out that her father was Vader, and that's ultimately what gets her kicked out of the Senate, for the New Republic. So, it different ways to do different things. That's my take.
yeah. Is there anything else in this book? Um,
We talked about Dala.
mhm.
Um, what did you think about, because this is kind of your cliffhanger in this book, is Kip Duron using Exar Kun to basically rip Luke's soul out of his body.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Like, and it's very odd just because like Hypteron, I think, is still teetering the edge because he has he's doing all the wrong things for the right reason, right? He is still very much angry at the Empire. He still sees them as a threat because they are still out there. They are still ruining lives. They are still threatening the galaxy. Uh, Even if it's, in small numbers. So like I'm very torn on like the idea of like, hey, let's do because Luke approached him when he went back to Yavin, went back to the temple. And it's very odd because he had the Sun Crusher there as well. I am so confused as of how large this thing is because by the description in the book, it sounded like the Sun Crusher was like right above the temple, and like Luke was like staring at it and like in awe and like very scared because of like holy crap, you brought it from the gas planet. But like
Yeah.
I guess it could also mean that it was up in the atmosphere as well. Very confused. But either way, they do get into a moment of getting into this fight, and uh that's what it looks like.
Yeah, so this is the Sun Crusher,
That is not what I
according to
pictured.
Wikipedia. I didn't picture it like this either. I picture it like a little disc that's maybe a little bigger than an X-wing. Um, this says it is 13.5 meters long. It does not say how wide. It says 65 kilograms.
And that thing
Uh,
flew through a star destroyer and completely
Well,
destroyed it.
Well, remember, it's got the armor on it, so it's got the quantum crystalline armor, which makes it
Yes.
indestructible. Um, so if we go look at an X-wing,
I was just
um,
very okay. But, while you're looking through that, okay, there it is.
so this is 12.5 meters, so it's a little bit bigger than an X-wing.
Looks like the dark elf ship from Thor 2, says Travis. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Um, no, but they have this discussion, and it's like looking back, it's very much in the same vein of like what we saw in The Last Jedi with Ben and Luke. It's just like this. Luke definitely doesn't want to do this because it's his star student. Like it's
Yep.
what he hoped was going to be his star student. Um, and I think it was also at this time. I can't remember if it was Exar Kun directly or if it was Kipteron using Exar Kun's power. But like he was able to turn off Luke's lightsaber just with like
Yeah.
just like a swipe of his hand. Um,
I
but
think that
like
was him using Kuhn's power.
yeah, it was either or. I can't remember because there was times where Luke actually confronted Exar Kun as well. Because there is a moment where Exar Kun tried to trick Luke and disguised himself as Anakin,
Yep.
and that was very interesting. And it's like it's so odd, like the difference between because not Anakin, Luke was trying to get answers from a holocron, and like he was talking to the holocron as if it was an actual person, and then he's like, "Oh crap, hold on, like you're just a device full of archived like information, like you're not the actual individual. So like when your life
Yep.
ended, you still have knowledge of what happens after. So let me ask you this." And so he was able to get some answers. Um, but like with SR Kun being able to still like accumulate knowledge in the passive of time and everything else, I think that's very interesting. Um, but like I still don't know, like clearly Kipteron has gone too far, but has he gone too far? Like, can he be brought back? Like, that's
I'm
the big
really
thing.
trying not to spoil it for you. Technically, I've already spoiled it for you because we talked about it in the first review, but you don't remember.
I
So,
don't
or
like.
you're choosing to forget. Oh, so I'm really trying not to spoil it for you. I don't know, for those listening, I don't know when we're going to get to book 3, because we're doing Young Jedi Adventures. Clay has his episode. I don't know if you've got somebody for it or if you're, I don't know. Um, but we've got a lot planned for the rest of the year, especially with the Del Rey novel, or excuse me, the Random House Worlds novels. Random House Worlds, I love you. I will probably always say Del Rey first and then remember Random House Worlds.
Hmm.
Um, so we've got a lot planned to kind of get some background on what's to come from Random House Worlds, plus all the High Republic stuff. So uh Clay and I will talk about it and we will figure it out. Um, but yes, that's what we'll let you guys know when we figure out a date. Uh, but yeah, it might be a hot minute. So yeah.
What is the name of the?
Champions of the Force is the third one.
Okay, 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 cool. Yeah, I'm looking at our makeshift calendar that was on your dry erase board.
I know I need to update the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But yeah, upcoming is going to be Young Jedi Adventures. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're talking about that next week. And then the following episode, so January 31st is our recording date. We will be talking about Escape from Valo, the next High Republic book. That is by Alyssa Wong and Daniel Jose Older. That book comes out January 30th.
We're
Um,
hoping to get copies. We're gonna cross our fingers.
or
Yeah.
cross our fingers. Um, But yeah, so and it is apparently a very hefty book for a middle grade book, so just be prepared, but that is what we will be talking about that day, that'll be our review, um, and so that is what you can expect for the rest of January, y'all. Clay, where can they find you?
Of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter and any and all social media. Um, I've said this several times, and I think I should stop saying it, but I was very hefty in streaming last year. Haven't been able to really find a spot for it this year yet. My schedule is still kind of hectic, but hopefully we're getting some news with a new job, crossing my fingers, and that can change, but still very much playing Marvel Snap and hopefully can stream pretty soon. Again, I am on Ranger Alliance as well. A new episode is coming out next Monday, or this upcoming Monday, where me and Joe talk about some comics, and the episodes 7 and 8 of Cosmic Fury. So go check that out when it drops. And yeah, as of right now, that is all I have.
Yes. Y'all, you can find me on most social media platforms. It is at Slice of Katie. This show you can find on Twitter. It is at Star Wars Alliance without the A, and the war is very important. Don't forget it. That same username at gmail.com is where you can send us an email. Um, and like always, we appreciate any comments, questions, like tell us what you're reading, that's Star Warsy right now. Um, like, we love getting those. That is what you can so that's our email. You can also send us a text or leave us a voicemail at 830-538-4828. Just remember to please leave us a name, nickname, doesn't really matter. That way we can just say, "Hey, this person sent us a text." So, yeah. Um, Somebody did email, I don't know if you saw this, Clay, somebody did email asking for book recommendations for his wife for Christmas.
Yes, I did see that.
So I hope that went well. I sent the recommendations, so I really hope that did go well, and let me know if she likes them. Um, so yes, it's Travis says, "Take care and happy New Year." Thanks for being here, Travis. I really like you're awesome in the chat. Hope we didn't spoil too much. I kind of spoiled the end, and I was like, "Wait, crap! Travis is here, and he's reading the first one." But I'm sorry. So, yeah, let us know how it goes, Travis. But yeah, um, so we will not be live next Wednesday, but we will still have an episode next week for Young Jedi Adventures. So with that, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see you all next time. May the
Force be with you.